We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the flag salute. Yes. Sure. 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 Yep. Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and take a roll call though while they're
Okay.
just reading things up?
Take a roll call. Ann Carpenter,
Here.
Richard Kapp,
Here.
David Ticker,
Here.
Virgil Anderson, online, James Ricker. Here. And Jeremy McCall.
Kind of a motion to approve the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda as presented. I second the motion.
Take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Agenda's approved. I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 16th, 2024.
I move that we approve the minutes from the May 16th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
I'll second.
You take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Move on to public comment. During this item, the public may address the commission on items not on this agenda. This public comment period is limited to 15 minutes, so please limit comments to 3 minutes per person. If all comments cannot be heard within the 15-minute time limit, the public comment period will be taken up at the end of the regular meeting. The commission is not permitted to take any action on items addressed under this item. Public comments? Nope. All right. And we'll move on to item number 6, report from the administrator.
Good evening. Not the administrator, but Lisa Carnahan, senior planner, filling in for Andy, who's online. Got a few things to talk about. The first is the principal planner's position. I think as of last meeting, we had just hired Alex Fish and introduced him. He has since gone back to planning, and we have the principal planner's position open once again. We're hoping to fill that within the next month. Also want to introduce to you Jason Sharp. up here in the red, he's our new accounting tech. We are absolutely thrilled to have him with us. And Kaylin has left us and went to HHS, and we snatched Jason from the, can you hear me okay through the mask? Okay, I'll sit a little closer. So we were wise and snatched Jason from over at the Fab building. So again, we're thrilled to have him here. Last but not least, Andy's position will be opening up. We're hoping, I think, the first part of August in order to be able to get somebody in here so that he can impart his great knowledge to that next person and pass the torch to that person before he leaves November 30th. With that, I am going to go get the clicker because I don't have it here. Thank you. And I'll talk about the park dedication fee components. Thank you. So this is the park dedication fee update from May. So it's, as you know, since it's July now, we will be having the next one for you, but the June was not available yet. So this is the May, and we do have a few items to add to this list that were approved by your commission. Previously, we have the Granite Bay Park service flagpole renovation, so $50,000 will be coming out of the Granite Bay area. And we have approved on June 25th was the ARD Meadow Vista baseball field improvements for $31,000. And that will be coming out of the Auburn area. And what else do we have? We have the Colfax, City of Colfax Skate Park, $130,000. That's going on July 23rd to the board. And then Eureka School Sports and Field renovation, that'll be $950,000, also from the Granite Bay area. That's due to go to the board sometime in September. And last but not least is the Loomis Park North Drainage, Sterling Point Park turf renovation, and Sterling Point equestrian staging area, $650,000, and that is a couple of months out before it goes to the board. And with that, I can take any questions you might have on the fee update. No questions?
No questions?
Okay, then I am going to hand it over to, not Sean, not Ted, but Andy for the Martis Valley Trail Section 3F. He's going to give you a little presentation on that, and he'll tell me when to switch the slides.
All right. Thank you very much. This is an item that normally would come before your commission as an action item, but it's an action or a decision that's moving pretty rapidly. Some of you will remember we had a grand opening for the first 3 phases of the Martis Valley Trail that extended from the town of Truckee to North Star Drive at the roundabout near Highway 267. And that was, I believe, a little over a year ago. And the final phase of that project that was to extend from the roundabout up into the village, North Star Village, was put out to bid. And I say final, it was the final of the phases that was fully studied and permitted, fully shovel ready. North Star Community Service District put the project out to bid earlier this year. They have stepped up to a project management role, which has been really great for us, as little bandwidth as we have. So they took that mantle on to manage the construction. They put it out to bid with an engineer's estimate of just over $3 million. Bids came in at 4.7 million. So they've gone back to the drawing board. They've done some value engineering. They believe that some of the bridges could be streamlined in cost, and so they've done what they could to go back to the engineer, see what kind of savings they think they can realize, talk to some of the bidders to see what drove costs up. They believe that they can save at least $300,000 just from re-engineering some of the bridges and access points. So that would give them an expectation of a new bid, hopefully in the for at least 4.4 million, which is still about a $1.4 million differential between the amount of money they had in the project. So all that is to say, we're really scrambling all the local funding sources right now to try to get that project back out to bid. Time is money. We're going to get the best bids we can get, bidding out in the fall so contractors can have it on their books for next spring, or even get started this fall if possible. So we believe the most efficient thing we can do is get the project right out to bid with that value engineering. So what we're doing right now is meeting with the North Tahoe Community Association, who weighs in on expenditures of TOT money. That's the short-term rental tax that's collected in North Tahoe. Also looking at Area 1 park fees, which the Area 1 park fee account has just over $1.4 million in it right now. Because of the critical path of this construction and the discussions that are going on between TOT money, park fees, also hitting up some other potential sources with the local resorts, with the airport district, things like that. We don't have a fully mature request to put before your commission tonight, but we will need to bring a request within the next month to 6 weeks before the Board of Supervisors that may include an ask from Area 1 park fees. And if that comes, although we don't know the number right now, we expect that ask of the board to be somewhere between $400,000 and $650,000. So we're bringing it to your commission tonight as an informational item because we don't know enough about it at this point to put a full request before you. And we expect that we're going to have to approach the board before our next meeting in September. So there's a couple of things we can do. We could take any individual comments, observations, questions about it tonight. Kind of pass those forward into the conversations we're having with our CEO's office, and take those comments to the board. If you desire, we could potentially have a special meeting if you did want to hear this one item when we do actually have the full funding package ready to make that recommendation to the board if you want to hear it. But at this point, I'll say, you can request that if you want, but at this point, I'd like to maybe hear any comments or questions that you have about this and see if I've explained it well enough. And then you'll take your input, your informational input, I'll say, and go forward. And we're going to try to put a package together for funding, get that in front of the board in the next month or so.
Yeah, I have a question. So just to make sure I understand it, so this is section 3F, right?
Yes.
And how long is that?
Oh, you got me. Should have had that pulled up right now.
Because it's $4.5 million
Yes.
for, looks like maybe a mile or so, but maybe it's more. I don't know the scale of the map.
I want to say 1.4. I will look that up as I can here, as I can take it. But that's, we are finding that depending on the terrain, the trails, the class 1 trails on the low end are in the $2.5 million range, and they go up to as much as 10 million per mile with a lot of structure. So that's not an out of the ordinary cost, I'll say, for a mile of trail.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at anyway, so yeah.
So here's the section here on the map of 3F. If you notice the north, the red line there is the existing 3B, and the core land is above north here. That's not on the map. But this yellow portion between the blue and the red, the blue being the future 3E alignment, this yellow is the 3F or 3 Foxtrot section, which will go from the existing 3B up into the North Star community. If you see look at the topo map, there's a lot of crossings in there. There's steep terrain. It's not an easy trail. It's pretty difficult. And one of the reasons for the expenses is the amount of bridges and crossings we have to do in this section to get across a couple of the creeks.
Commissioner Cap, the answer to your question is 1.98 miles.
Andy, what is the anticipated construction time if this all gets funded?
The allotment to the contractor would be through the 2025 construction season, so they could either elect to start it this fall and finish it next year, or do it all in a single season would be the goal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, and just to recap, normally the process is that we go to the affected municipal advisory councils, then we bring it to you and then to the board. In some of these rare cases, a critical path, we do have to accelerate that. So that's our purpose tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like the rental policy update is next. Perfect.
So, we came to your commission about 2 years ago now to come and talk about the field pricing updates. And that was a pretty successful operation. You know, we had a lot of people involved, a lot of leagues. Your commission was involved, and it was pretty successful. We knew that going into that we were going to see where the bumps in the road were after it had been instituted and had been going for a little while. So that's why we are now looking at updating our rental policy. So it's about 25 pages. I was going to print you all a copy and give you a homework assignment, but I thought it was too hot for that. But what I want to do is kind of plant the seed that this is something we're working on. We're trying to establish, you know, something that's going to be a living document, but obviously something that will also help us as we move forward. So our old priority group classification, this is one of the big hangups, right, is the different groups. You know, we have the large leagues that have been a part of the county for 15 years, you know, the Del Oro High School, the Golden Eagles, you know, Five City Softball, Forest Hill. They've all been a part of our organization for a very long time. And so typically, they would get first pick of time, field time, right? It's kind of just the way we've operated over the years. The old priority started with local nonprofit sport leagues in good standing. It wasn't very well defined because everybody's nonprofit. Every league is nonprofit. Even the ones that are making an extremely nice profit were nonprofit. And that's just from some of the research we did. And we shared some of that with you a couple years ago. And then it was schools. And then we would move down to the, you know, the select and competition leagues that don't have a everyone plays philosophy. And then the general public, and then commercial operations. So trying to redefine how these groups are going to work moving forward and coming up with some ideas. And part of the reason that I want to plant this seed is because I'm hoping to get some feedback from you guys. Probably next week sometime, Tracy will send out what we've done so far. And a lot of what we've done is removed, you know, the information regarding the old campgrounds that we don't maintain and things like that. And then we've made some notes on ideas. But the long-standing leagues, when I've reached out to about 25 different agencies across the state from different folks I know. And most of them have something very similar to what's on the bottom here. Most of them have, you know, the long-standing leagues, but they do an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with that league, that as long as they remain in good standing, they will be invited to the November meeting to get their time first, right? That's the whole idea is we meet with the leagues that have good standing and they've been part of, you know, the institution for a long time in November. After the first of the year, everybody comes out of the woodwork, all the, you know, competition guys, all the training camps, all that stuff. So we're trying to determine what is a good, you know, foundation for how are we going to determine who gets the priority. So the long-standing leagues, I think, is still a good method, but some of the, like I talked to Roseville and I talked to Consumness, and they do a memorandum of understanding with those leagues saying, you know, you've been with the county for 15 years, you're in good standing. As long as those things remain, you will be invited to the first batch of scheduling invites. Placer County Schools, we work with Del Oro mostly for Loomis North. And some of them just don't have the capacity. It's girls softball, so they need that facility, so they would kind of be our second. And, the two leagues that share the girls softball fields, they've been doing this for 15 years anyway. And then we would go into new small, non-exclusive leagues. Because this is where we're getting the hiccup, right, is they come out of the woodwork. And I actually learned quite a bit when we were talking to Ann about this, is you'll have an infighting in a league, it'll split, now there's two leagues. 3 years later, when the dads move on, that league doesn't exist anymore, and everybody goes back to the other league, and it's kind of crazy how youth sports works, but it's got its own political pecking order. So with the last three, the general public, single teams, commercial or travel ball, is one of the ideas I talked with down in SoCal, Orange County, a friend of mine, and they do a lottery. So what they do is all the teams that have always been a part of the county, they get their time. That's done. And then on the first of the month, the first of the year, everybody puts in their time, and they get chosen in increments. Like, oh, you get 10 days, and now you get 10 days, and you get 10 days, and they do kind of a lottery. It's not super popular, but trying to come up with a way that is equitable and fair to all these little leagues, smaller leagues, I should say, is kind of difficult. So that's where I'm kind of looking for some input from you guys. Talk about how's the lottery going to work? How do we do it? Are there alternatives? So the other thing that we've tried to institute in the last 2 years is that the baseball fields are reserved on Sundays for families. We try to just, when COVID happened, we became extremely popular because we were one of the few counties that was allowing kids to still have some semblance of sports, even if it wasn't contact sports or, they had to be distanced, but we still allowed it. And that year we gained about 15 new leagues, came out of the woodwork. And so in our conversations with the board and with you, one of the biggest things was, first of all, we want to make sure we're serving our residents and not Sacramento County residents or Yolo County residents, right? And then also we want to make sure that we're leaving time for families to still be able to use the fields. And so for the most part, I haven't received too much grief about the Sundays are for families. The soccer fields and football fields, we don't treat them the same because traditionally those sports are often played on Sundays anyway. So we didn't think it would be fair to say, oh, you always play on Sunday and you can't now, right? So we made an exception. Last year, one of our leagues in Granite Bay, they hosted the All-Stars for their division. And so they needed a few extra days. So we decided, okay, for things like playoffs and All-Stars, we can make an exception, but it's not going to be every week. It's only going to be for those specific events. Again, I talked about the lottery process for the field time. January 1st might cut it close because we typically do our league meetings around the first week of November. Usually it's before I go down to Lake Arrowhead, and then that gives Tracy, essentially, she does most of the reservations. It gives her about 6 weeks to get the books packed so that on January 1st we can go, here's what's left. And then the other one, the kind of hiccup that we had is when we did the fee policy, we also instituted a deposit, which is fairly significant. It's a $2,500 deposit, but it's for a season, right? And then at the end of the season, they can get it back or they can roll their deposit over. Well, part of the problem we ran into is we've had a few leagues that were essentially two teams, and they want 10 days, right? So we need to take another look at, the deposit, the field deposit that we do for ones that don't really qualify as, this league that has 22 kids and this league has 1,500 kids. One's getting 10 days and one's getting 300 days. It's not equitable. So we need to look at what we can do to try to alleviate some of that pressure for those small leagues. And then the last thing, and this is my sports turf brain talking, is how much is too much? I've been doing a lot of reading lately. There's a lot of articles that are being put out about over renting out our field time, right? And it doesn't recover. So you have kids playing on it straight all spring, and then you have these competitive leagues that want to come in during the summer, and then you have fall ball. Your field never gets to recover. So we've, I think most of you here, we've invested a lot in our fields the last few years to make them sustainable, to make them water friendly. And so we also have to ask the question, when do we just tell people, no, sorry, we don't have any more field time. We need to let the fields rest. So these are kind of some of the big ideas that I wanted to throw out there. Like I said, we'll send you guys all the existing policy and some of the strikeouts I did for, a lot of it was for Bear River camping and things that we're just removing the mention of all that since we're no longer doing that. I think that was really all I had, if anybody has any questions.
What's the recovery time?
So a lot of your East Coast teams are using the same turf we're using, right? Because it's warmer there. So they use the warm season turf grass instead of the cool season turf grass. And a lot of them are only allowing about 2,000 a season on their field. And then that's with small intermittent breaks, like our Sunday is for family day, right? If you've got 3 or 4 kids out there playing kickball with a rubber ball, they're not going to put the impact on the field that, an all-day tournament is, hour after hour after hour. But most of them are starting to say, if once you hit that 2,000 hour mark, you're beyond, it's not going to repair. And that's the whole reason we went to this turf, is because it does repair itself. But if you don't give it the time to do that, eventually we're going to have dirt lots.
So how long is the repair? Like, is it a 3-day? Is it like a
So
week?
yeah,
Is
that's
it-
kind of what we looked at too, is a lot of them are saying 72 hours in between like heavy play. So if they're only doing practice, Monday through Friday, Saturdays 3 or 4 games, we have to look at, okay, is Sunday enough rest time based on how the impact of what they did through the week. Right now it's kind of working. It seems like it's working. The other issue we're having is when Bayside Church opened up in Granite Bay, they put in all those very nice fields, and they're lovely and they're expensive. I'm just speaking from talking to coaches, right? And so I have one of my parks in Granite Bay that has been inundated for the last 3 weeks with camps, soccer camps from 8 a.m. to 11. And the neighbors are mad because they can't take their dogs out there because the thing's covered with 300 kids. And they are impacting the turf tremendously because they are running 5 or 6 sets of drills at a time. And part of the problem with our policy is it doesn't really give us the teeth to go out there and go, no, so another aspect of that is, we don't want people running leagues and camps and football camps and things like that. Because the commercial operations will come in and move in and stay as long as they can until you find a way to run them off. So the policy's got to change. We got to move with the times, and looking at some of the ones from other agencies, they're pretty direct about, you'll be reported. It's a violation of the county code. The sheriff will come out and run you off. And I mean, you don't want to do that, right? When there's 300 kids on the field, the last thing you want to do is have a sheriff come out and, but we have to figure something out. Like I said, we got to be good stewards of these fields that we put so much time into. So part of the policy of how do we use them and how do we rent them is all part of that.
So Dan, I think, trying to listen to what you heard, so there's people coming on the fields without reservations.
Yep,
As opposed to have,
yep,
yeah, it's hard to pick them up.
yeah, it is. Well, and it's no different when you have 8 people out there with their Starbucks cup and their dogs running loose on the soccer field, right? And then the kids come in the next night to play, and the field's covered because they weren't responsible dog owners. And so then the coaches call and complain that we're not running the dogs off. And it's like, we're not an enforcement arm, right? We're not like the sheriff. We're not like rangers that have the authority to go out and you know, put your dog on a leash. And so they know that, and that's part of the problem is they go, oh, those parks guys have no teeth. So they can't really do anything about us violating the code, and the sheriff's not gonna come out because 3 people don't have their dog on a leash. So, yeah. Same issue. You know, and part of this is having a mechanism to tell a league, look, you're no longer in good standing. We're not gonna rent field space to you this year. Maybe next year we'll consider it, you know, if you come back and be respectful, you know, stewards of the fields. And I think that's kind of what we need to do is we need to have some of that verbiage that allows us to, you know, flex our muscles, so to speak. So anyways, those are some ideas for you guys. I appreciate your time. Tracy will probably send those. You can look at what we have now. I didn't bring it tonight because it's 22 pages and I knew it would just be too much. So thank you.
Moving on to our action item, Lisa.
Hello again. So yes, this is the Hidden Falls Regional Park Phase 2 construction project. So as you will recall, the overall trails well, that's very odd. I'm not used to that. Sorry, I'm not used to that type of pointer. The overall trails project was approved back in 2021 by the Board of Supes. We have been working in collaboration with the Land Trust to open up the first component, which is is there another way to, oh. Sorry, I broke it. Breaker. I was trying to get a different pointer, but I guess that's it. So this first component of Phase 1 is the Twilight Ride off of Bell Road, the parking area. And it's going to connect with the Taylor and Katamian. There's about 8 miles of existing trails here. Recently, as you know, we also purchased this property here, this 140-acre property, as well as the 6.8-acre property in order to avoid 2 large bridges over Raccoon Creek. So what we're looking at here for Phase 2 construction is to connect the trail system all the way from Twilight Ride, all the way over through the new parcels and over to the existing trail system within Hidden Falls. We are looking at putting out a construction package, so we take this to the board with your recommendation, of course, and it would be for the solicitation of bids for this Phase 2 construction, and we're looking at a cost of about $650,000 is what we have estimated it will be. That's our best guess at this point. And so it will go out to bid. We are looking at utilizing $275,000 in park dead fees from the Auburn Meadow Vista area and $200,000 from the Lincoln area. And so that is the recommendation for your commission tonight, is to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the use of those park dedication fees. And I can answer any questions you might have. There will be leftover money if you look in the park dedicate. Oh, lest I forget, we did have 2 written comments which I provided to you in paper form before the meeting started. One from Michael Garabedian and the other one from Mike Vandeman. I was going to talk about the park dedication fees, that there will be money left in both accounts. In Auburn, there'll be about $475,000 left, and ARD has a project slated for about $275,000 of those funds, and with a remaining balance of about $200 left over for any other projects. And then the rural Lincoln will have about $219,000 left over for other projects. And if you take a look at the park dedication fee sheet, you can see that annually, the Auburn area, well, I didn't put an average, but in the last 4 or so years, it's brought in about $250,000 a year, if I look at that correctly. And then the city of Lincoln has brought in about $50,000 a year. So they are replenishing annually. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Lisa, maybe I just haven't read well enough. I'm a little confused on the funding and the amounts. We're requesting, the action requested looks like 475,000. But the estimated cost is 650,000 for the construction.
Right, the rest would be coming from funding already there, from a different project.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Lisa, what kind of a trail is this gonna be? How wide? What? Is it gonna be
This
dirt or
is a
gravel?
natural surface trail,
Okay.
so it'll be continuation of the natural surface trails within the park. And there'll be 3 bridges, but they're gonna be a lot smaller than the original size bridges. They're 24 to 26 feet, so they're a lot less expensive, and there'll be water crossings. So,
And so looking at the map, so just making sure I understand, so it's the green proposed trails on this map that are gonna be, this money's gonna be for, correct? You know, the red ones, the black ones, according to legend, are already there, right?
right, so it's going to be the trails, this green
The
trail.
green ones, yeah.
The green one that connects it over,
Mhm.
and then there'll be another trail that connects up to here,
Mm-hmm.
and then a trail in here. So, and the other is with regards to the monetary portion, so you'd have 275,000 from Auburn, 200 from Lincoln area, and then 175,000 that'll be made up by general funds. Which adds up to the 650. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, they're multi-use trails, so that, just like the rest of Hidden Falls, so the entirety of the whole project, the whole trails expansion project will be multi-use trails. That's also it's paved, so horses will, yeah. It's more of a pedestrian bicycle. Mhm.
So Lisa? Mm-hmm. So the letter from Michael Garabedian?
Garabedian? Uh-huh.
So that's in relation to this project here, right? Is he
Correct.
responding to this project right here, or just in general to the park?
In general, to the trails expansion, I believe.
Oh, okay. And so what does this all mean here? Because I'm kind of lost about what he's saying.
You can weigh in a little bit if you want, please.
Sure.
So Michael Garabedian has taken an interest in this project and projects before it, down in the North Fork American River. He first took an interest in some of our projects years ago with the North Fork American River Trail. These are questions that were brought up during the environmental review. He did ask questions about compatibility with the Placer County Conservation Plan. Actually, this project is specifically written into the Placer County Conservation Plan. Trails were taken into account. The factor of credit for the amount of the conserved space that would be taken by trails, things like that, is actually specifically calculated in the Placer County Conservation Plan. So we would argue that he is not correct in those assertions that this project is incompatible, and we could direct you to some of the dialogue where these questions were answered in front of the board and the Planning Commission during the environmental review process for the project.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right.
I was having trouble hearing you. If you have other questions, if
Yeah,
you could come
feel
up to
free
the
to
microphone, that
mic.
would help, and state your name for the record, please.
Colleen Conley, 9775 Heidi Way, just
Thank you.
that way.
Thank you.
So I was just concerned about the change of the environment where the people live now, where we're going to put these trails. I'll be thrilled to have it because I can use it and I don't have to live next to what's going on. I wondered if there was some concession to the present residents for the change in their lifestyle, basically, because of the invasion of the trail riders. Is there, are there people objecting to it? Is there some way to have them feel better about it? Or is that not something that's
There
considered?
were several concessions. The project was cut in just about half in response to some of the concerns of folks and also the costs, and in order to help the adjacent people, there's plantings, visual screening that'll go up in between the adjacent neighbors.
So that's helpful.
So, yeah, and we're gonna be putting up signage as far as, there was concern about, like, people that lived on the other side of Kramer, it's a dead end, and so we're gonna make sure that we have a signage program so that we can direct people to the park and not get sidetracked on the other streets where they'll get lost or, have to turn around.
Right, right. So let's see, I had something else. It slipped my mind. Maybe I'll be back. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you have my email, so you can feel free to email me at any time with further questions as you think of them.
Thank you. I also have been, over the years, because I've been riding the trail out there now, the original one, for all the years that it's been open. And I get very upset about the users that don't know to stay on the trail and have cut through. And there's been a lot of fencing put up, which does not stop them, by the way. And I wondered about a patrol out there, because I would love to be on it.
Well, we're actually looking, and I'll make sure I keep your contact information, because we are looking at a volunteer patrol of equestrians, bicyclists, and pedestrians that wish to go out and help us with those things.
I would be very happy to be a part of that.
Wonderful.
I do, in my most diplomatic manner, try to redirect them. I've only had one incident where I was feared for my life, but so it's just it's such a beautiful park, and it's took so much money and time, and I hate to see people decimating it.
And it just takes constant education, because people, like you say, most of the time, if you educate people,
It helps.
it helps, and then they know not to do that in the future.
And what else I think is interesting is that I've lived here for 50-some years, so I know a few people around, and I don't often see people I know out there. And I like to talk with them and find out where they're coming from. They're coming from a long way away from here.
It's a
And-
very popular park.
Right.
That's why we had to implement the reservation system on the weekends.
And so that makes us a little bit of money as well.
I mean, it's definitely not a moneymaker.
No,
We-
it isn't.
it was meant to help
To
with the
to
traffic so
control it a
that
little.
people would have a reservation before they came and limit the amount of traffic on the local roads.
Thank you.
And Lisa, I assume that Twilight Ride parking is going to be reservations too,
Is
on
gonna-
weekends.
I'm sorry, he's going to be what?
Twilight Ride parking.
I didn't hear the second part of it.
Reservations.
Is that going to be reservations too?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Sorry.
It's amazing, when I can't read lips, I have a hard time. My hearing isn't as good as it used to be, I guess. Yes, there'll be reservations, and in the outset of when it opens, we're going to have reservations 7 days a week until we figure out the protocol as far as how many people are coming during the week versus the weekend, and we assume that in a fairly short period of time, we'll be able to ascertain, how many people are coming during the weeks, how many people are coming during the weekend, and then just be able to have the same reservation system as we currently have at the Mears side, which is reservations on the weekends, holidays, and high-use days, and then the rest of the days are free.
Thank you.
Hey, Lisa, how long is it gonna take to build the new section? Like, when will it be open to the public?
We're looking at the end of 2025.
Any other questions, comments for Lisa? All right.
Motion.
I need a motion.
I'll move we recommend the County Board of Supervisors approve a request from County Parks, Trails, and Open Space Division staff for $275,000 in park dedication fees from Recreation Area Number 5, Auburn Meadow Vista area, and $200,000 from Recreation Area Number 6, Lincoln area, to help fund the Hidden Falls Regional Park Trails Expansion Project.
I second the motion.
Take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, thanks, Lisa. Item number 10, commissioner comments? Anyone?
No comment?
Comment? No comment?
I'd like to say that Dutch Flat Swimming Pool. The Dutch Flat Swimming Pool has been a very, very popular place this last few weeks. We've been hitting 100 a couple of times in Dutch Flat, which is like very unusual. So, yeah. It's good to have our parks and places we can go.
Definitely. I know. Okay, next park commission meetings, discussion, confirmation.
I guess the question is that going to be a Tahoe meeting?
I believe so.
If I may, we have North Tahoe Public Utility District has expressed their interest in hosting us in September. And traditionally, we have made that meeting a full-day meeting on a Friday, the one following the normal Thursday meeting. But that's kind of open for discussion, I think. Pull up the calendar here and see what those dates would be.
I think it's like the 19th or something.
So the normal meeting date would be Thursday, the 19th of September. The alternate that we have sometimes done for Tahoe meetings would be Friday, the 20th, but that's either of those dates, I believe, are open. And we can poll you individually as time gets closer as well. You don't necessarily need to make any recommendation tonight.
I'd like to mention that the reason, at least when I first got here, for the Friday to Tahoe, for the Tahoe meeting was, since it's an all-day meeting, some people chose to come up with family, spouses, and spend the night and then have another day at Tahoe. So it works for me on Friday or on Thursday.
Any other comments, questions? All right, item number 12, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I want to do that all night.